if we have questions, we'll try to answer them. So what's up, everybody? It looks like we have about 110 people viewing at the time. I'm here with my good friend Chris Spadafora, who is the founder of BadgerDAO. It's a really exciting, cool new product. I've been talking to him about BadgerDAO for months now, really since the beginning of the last big DeFi bubble. And I'm excited to, be involved as a community member in BadgerDAO. I mean, these guys are going to basically bring tokenized Bitcoin into DeFi in a big way, and they're going to be creating all sorts of different products and different shit like that solely revolves around Bitcoin, the honey badger, and DeFi. So, big welcome to Chris of BadgerDAO. How's it going, man?
Good, man. What's going on? Appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely. If you could, because I don't think the audience is too familiar with who you are yet, although I'm sure they will be, when they see the power of BadgerDAO and they see this taking off. If you could just give a brief introduction of yourself and, tell us a little bit about how you got into crypto, what you like doing, et cetera, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, man. This is almost year 8. So it's, I think, close to the end of 2013 was the beginning of the journey. So I actually used to live in New York, and I was lucky enough where my office, so when I was in New York, I was selling like hardware and software and stuff like that to like a bunch of enterprises, to Major League Baseball and some big banks and Blackstone, companies along those lines. And my office was on Wall Street, and it was right on top of the original Bitcoin Center.
Wow.
And it was like, just shit luck, right? But a friend of mine from college moved to New York, and he's like, dude, like, we got to go to these meetups. They do them on Tuesdays. Like, you can talk to all these guys that are into this thing called Bitcoin. And I punted it for a while. I'm like, dude, just like, I'm trying to sell some shit. Like, let me do my thing, But eventually I went downstairs, and it was crazy, man. Like, it was like an Excel spreadsheet that they would blast on the walls, the order book, and like a dude in a bow tie would be doing, auction style. And I remember like Bitcoin, I don't know, remember what it was, like $200 or something, $100, and we were just buying and selling. Like, it was fun. So that was really my first taste. And at that point, I got a bunch of Bitcoin and really just held on, and didn't do much outside of just lurking the channels on Bitcoin Talk and, meet some friends online and do things along those lines. And then in 2016, I had an e-commerce business that I sold, and I decided to venture into crypto full time, and decided to, just help with some of the stuff that I learned on the journey, like marketing and sales and business development. So there's a pretty active Ethereum community in Toronto. And that's when it was like, well, why not get involved with some of the early ETH guys and some of the products that they're building. So did that for a while, and then just continued to invest and advise and try and build some communities. I, launched a big conference here in Canada, got involved in co-hosting San Francisco Blockchain Week, and helped launch the big summit in Malta over the years. And essentially just, was advising, consulting, and investing for different crypto startups. And then about, I'd say, oh shit, it's November already. I say beginning of this year, I was kind of like, you know what, man, I really want to build. Like, it's cool that I've been involved in this space for a while and whatever, but I really want to build, and I really want to have an impact on the future of Bitcoin in particular. Like, I've been obviously a Bitcoin fan since the beginning. I've been an Ethereum fan since it launched, an investor, but I was just never active in their community. So I went on this journey this year to be like, well, how do you build some products for Bitcoin? And I wanted to really look at like insurance products and things along those lines, and realized that it's really hard to build on Bitcoin, man. And it was kind of like a sticker shock for me. And then at the same time, we started to see this explosion of financial apps on Ethereum, really garnering a lot of capital and a lot of people. And then that's where it kind of clicked for me. It's like, you know what? I'm really super bullish on where Bitcoin on Ethereum and other chains, so essentially as collateral in financial applications, I think it's just going to be massive. So why not focus on building the right community to help accelerate that? And here we are.
So that's kind of where BadgerDAO was born. And you were telling me, before we actually started streaming, that you have around 1,000 people in your Discord right now.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's this is a community first initiative, right? Like, it's not a legal company. It's a community. It's a community that builds software, and it lives on a permissionless blockchain, and we want that software to be valuable. So the whole idea around it is, Badger builds products specifically and hyper focused on bringing Bitcoin to DeFi, and in particular when it's on other chains, the application, so it actually has some use, right?
Right.
So what we did was, we built two products. The first one is similar to, a vault type product, a yield aggregator, where you would deposit tokenized Bitcoin, and then we'll put it to work over a variety of different DeFi protocols and give you yield. And then the other one's an elastic supply cryptocurrency, but pegged to Bitcoin, so similar to Ampleforth. And really the last like two and a half months, the approach was, let's just have the community from day zero, not day one, like, hey, we did all this shit, like, come on in, and like, now we're gonna govern this thing and use this token. Like, no, it's like, let's actually figure this all out together. So the community has been amazing, man. It's a lot of people and projects in the space, like part of the DAO, Ren's part of the DAO, and the Keep team, and we've had just so many different groups that have come together to actually help figure out what this could look like. And that's how it's gone from, we have some products that we built to, we're getting ready to launch next week, and we're going to really put the governance token into the hands of the people that use the product, helped early, and also, took actions on other protocols that fall in line with our values. So that's kind of how it's come to fruition right now.
So, I'm sure there's a lot of moon boys in my audience. And part of that is my fault. And, I'm sure a lot of people at this point are like asking, well, how can I get the fucking token? Or what does that mean? How can I get involved? How can I, be a part of this? I just heard you mention that a lot of people kind of might be getting the token that don't even know that they are. If you participate in certain protocols and you've, helped to bootstrap, basically Bitcoin, right? In other areas of DeFi that, we're going to bring you under the umbrella of BadgerDAO. What exactly, differentiates BadgerDAO? Because you said, the first product is like a yield aggregator, right? So very similar to a YFI. And I believe even, the code is based on some of the YFI vault code. What would differentiate BadgerDAO between, a YFI, for example, or any of the other yield aggregator protocols? And then two, what's the purpose of this? I believe you're calling it DIG, which is the elastic supply cryptocurrency, similar to Ampleforth, that is pegged to Bitcoin price. What are some of the things that can be done with that? How can you acquire that? Is this a fair launch? Is there an ICO? Like who's got the tokens, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, dude. So like, this is the whole approach, right? Like, our approach is trying to build the most developer friendly community possible, where people come and they have the right skin in the game to build these products with us. Like, if we don't have people that share in our values, and I'll share what those are in a second, but if we don't have people that share in our values, this thing will not succeed, right? Like, this is not like it's a company with 30 employees and we're building all this shit. Like, no, this is like actually a community. And the more the community participates and takes lead, and the whole token structure is in line with that. But as they take that lead, this is how this is going to be sustainable and successful. So it's like the people that actually, so the token governs all the products, the system, the treasury, everything associated with it is in complete control by the token holder. So who holds the tokens is going to dictate, the direction of everything. So that's why we said, well, what's the best way to distribute this to ensure that we at least try our best to get the right people to have it in their hands? So we looked at it in three ways. We said, okay, we want people that share in our values. We value, obviously, Bitcoin in DeFi and Bitcoin on other chains. So we want people that already believe in that are comfortable with it, that use tokenized Bitcoin in DeFi. Like, that's so big. The other thing is people that support public goods. like a big focus for us is giving back to really help encourage the future of all these Web3 applications that are going to be built. That's why even, you know, a percentage of our whole supply we're giving to Gitcoin as part of our launch. But that's another huge important thing for us. And thirdly, it's decentralized governance, right? Like this is a DAO, and the tokens are going to manage the entire ecosystem. That's like their utility. They're a governance token in its truest form. So that's the type of people that we wanted. So we said, okay, if those are the type of people we want, how do we distribute this? So first and foremost, we're doing this, I believe, to be like a ridiculously epic airdrop, where we went across and looked at all these different protocols. Here, let's start giving.
Hold on just a second, guys. Looks like we have a wife intruder, but I'm sure Chris will be back in just a moment. No worries, man. All right, he's back.
I'm back in action. So yeah, so as I was saying, like, so it's okay, how do we get this into the hands of the right people? So we need to get users that actually know how to use this stuff. So we said, okay, we're gonna have our product, which is what we call Set Vault, where you would deposit different tokenized Bitcoin, we'll put it to work for you, and then on top of that, we'll distribute the Badger token, right? Very similar to how Yearn distributed Wi-Fi in the beginning, right? We look at Yearn as kind of like that benchmark that, you know, in terms of the products that they built, the way that they've built this amazing community, that's like the gold standard for us. We're really trying to, really trying to step up to that level, you know? So that's really the core way that we're going to be distributing Badger is anyone that uses our product, they will be able to earn yield, which we hope to be some of the highest yield that you can get on your tokenized Bitcoin because of some of our unique strategies. And then, of course, Badger. The other approach that we're taking is the airdrop approach. So we went out and we looked at a variety. We've announced about 10 so far, but we're talking like people that have provided liquidity or added to the REN, BTC, or SBTC pool on Curve, people that have supplied or borrowed WBTC on Compound or Aave, people that have donated to Gitcoin, people that have participated in governance for Yam, Sushi, Pickle, Wi-Fi. Like, so we went out and gathered all this data, and we're essentially going to be distributing the token, about 10% of the supply, to people that have taken those actions. So it's not like, hey, I'm telling you this, like you can take them now. And no, like the snapshots taken, like really it's the people that took the actions without knowing that there was a potential reward for taking those actions. It was because that's who they are and that's the profile of the individual, right? And then finally, we're going to obviously have a percentage of the token for early contributors. And these aren't people that like join a fucking whitelist or whatever. These are people that have actively helped us make some of the most important decisions as it leads to launch in the last 2.5 months. And like we said earlier, the community is super active, and it's smart people that like have been there and done that, and they're giving us feedback and guidance to really help us, learn from some of their mistakes and learn from some of the things that work really well for them. So we're happy to have those types of leaders in the community, and that's what the reward mechanics are going to look like.
When you do launch, are you going to have some form of liquidity mining or things like that? Because let's say that it is interesting to see that we're distributing these tokens to a huge number of people, right? Based on merit, based on, like as you put it, their profile, which is awesome because you're bringing the right kind of people into the community, and I haven't really seen an initial distribution mechanism kind of do that yet, which is it's really cool to see, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. For the people watching that want to get involved, want to have some of this BadgerDAO token, is there going to be like liquidity mining or something like that on launch? So there's a liquid market for them to buy into, or are you just going to let the market, develop over time and get liquidity over time, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so for launch, the way we're going to do it is we're going to distribute the airdrop. And what's cool about the airdrop actually is people need to claim quickly. So if you don't claim within 24 hours, we're actually going to start taking 20% of those rewards away and putting them into a community pool. So after 5 days, whoever didn't claim the rewards, they'll be sitting in this community pool now, and the community can actually earn them by holding Badger for an X amount of time, using the product, participating in governance, kind of almost like achieving these certain levels. But as it relates to liquidity mining, we're going to have an initial liquidity mining event for 8 weeks post-launch. And instead of saying, hey, here are these arbitrary farms with these pairs, like instead it's like you use our product. So here are the different vaults we have. You know, we have a REM BTC vault, we have a TBTC vault, we have an SBTC vault. We have all these different vaults within our product stack. You use those. Whoever used those will get yield, and they'll also get the governance token. And that's the form of distributing during the 8-week liquidity mining event. And then, of course, one of the vault strategies that we've created, which I think actually will probably be mimicked by quite a few people after our launch, is a Uniswap liquidity vault, where what we do is we say, okay, we have a liquidity pool for Badger and WBTC on Uniswap. You deposit those LP tokens in our vault. Then we'll put the Badger rewards that you get to work for you. So we'll take a percentage of them, 50%. We'll re-inject them back into your liquidity position on Uniswap for you, which obviously includes us selling 25% for, or half of that 50% for WBTC, so we can add it to Uniswap. And then now your liquidity position in Uniswap will get bigger and bigger. The liquidity for the whole system will, of course, get bigger and bigger. And then you'll also be earning more Badger now because you hold a bigger position in your LP. And then the other half of the Badger rewards will be claimable whenever you want, type thing.
Oh, yeah, super cool.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that as one of the vault strategies. But for the most part, Dan, that's the plan is, you know, we're going to have this retroactive airdrop. We're going to have the liquidity mining event. And then we've also developed something pretty cool called the developer mining pool. So we've taken almost the same amount of rewards that we're going to be distributing to liquidity providers, and we're going to be distributing those to developers. And the way that we're doing it is you can provide strategies for our vaults, very similar to Yearn, and you can earn 50% of whatever profit comes from those strategies, which is awesome, right? Like a developer can build, and that's like super cool. But at the same time, we'll also have this pool of Badger rewards. And based on the total revenue your strategy brings to the DAO versus all the other strategies, you'll get a percentage of those rewards. And then those rewards, of course, in Badger, govern the product and further incentivize you to actually, you know, continue to manage this strategy, to participate and provide new strategies, to help figure out different decisions that the community is going to make. So that's how we're distributing it.
Well, what about DIG? You know, what about your elastic supply currency? Where does this kind of fit into the narrative?
So that's our second product. Like I'm really excited about you know, elastic supply in general. I feel like having it pegged to something that doesn't, you know, having it pegged to like the US dollar, for example, I think that's a very, very hard hurdle to get over, right? Like what I love most about elastic supply cryptocurrencies is the game theory that's built into the actual protocol. Like in a lot of instances, it relies on buy and sell pressure that comes from the supply fluctuation. So if the supply goes up, you're obviously like, dude, I'm going to sell this. Like I now have like X amount more. So that sell pressure brings the price down, which ideally comes closer to the peg, and it reverses on the other side. But if you have an asset super volatile like Bitcoin, you can do different hedging strategies as is associated with the supply chain and the actual asset. But as well, you could use it if you feel confident in the ability for it to stay close to the peg as something that follows the Bitcoin price as well. So what we're trying to do is, you know, the approach that we've taken is we have our parameters, which are very similar to Ampleforth, where it rebases daily. And then it has a 10-day rolling distribution of those, whatever that rebase mechanic was, if it's positive or negative. But what we did was we put those parameter controls in the hands of the community. So what I hope to happen as we bring more and more people in is that we have the ability to innovate around how rebasing is actually made. Like I'd love to see like a per block rebase where it really smooths that out, so it's not this like crazy up and down. And I'd love to see, you know, how we can use different liquidity pools, like a balancer liquidity pool with REM BTC and WBTC in that pool and DIG, and then tie that into our vault system, and how you can really drive, you know, that type of pressure on both supply and on both buying and selling through that pool, and incentivize that activity, which of course will help drive the peg closer to the price of Bitcoin, provide that type of umph that in some instances we haven't seen with other rebasing mechanics. So that's how it all plays into the system, and the way that it's being distributed is exactly the same. So I think this also is going to get people excited. But so when we launch, which is, we're planning on launching next week actually, but when we launch, we'll launch with our product live and a whole slew of vaults, the ability to earn Badger by using the product, and have the airdrop. Then within 2 weeks, we're going to launch DIG. And what we're saying is anyone that's using our vault product that's earning Badger, you're now going to earn DIG for the next 8 weeks.
So you'll earn once Badger again, and DIG.
Exactly. Why? Because once again, those are like people using tokenized Bitcoin in a vault to get yield and put it to work. Like those are the exact people that we think will love this concept and use and further help push and develop something like DIG. So when it comes down to it, once those are both launched, we are hopefully going to have some of the best yield that you can get on your tokenized Bitcoin. We're going to be offering Badger as part of the distribution for using the product, and we're going to be offering DIG on top of that. So we anticipate when you add those all up, the APY to be pretty juicy.
Now, Rise of Bitcoin in chat, actually has a really good question, and I think it's even more important, considering how many flash loan exploits, how much bullshit we've seen in this space recently. He wants to know if you had the protocol audited at all.
Yeah, so we're trying to be as responsible as possible here, right? Like we could have launched something 2 months ago, honestly, but we decided to take our time to really spend time getting as much feedback from other really smart people in the space, going through the audit process, which we're about to finalize as we get ready for launch. And ideally, we're going to be launching with the product audited. And that's super important. Like I actually was spending some time yesterday with some people with quite a bit of experience in DeFi protocols in the space, going through all the different flash loan, because it's a whole different beast now, Dan, right? Like it's not like pure code exploits, it's more economic exploits. So you really have to think about different ways to mitigate against those types of things and try and kind of get in front of these new ways that people are going to come up with things. So even with us, for example, what we instituted after seeing what happened with a few of the recent exploits is we eliminated the ability to withdraw and deposit in our vaults in the same block, right? Because obviously flash loans are happening in the same block. So by preventing that, it brings a few negatives, like smart contract wallets will have hard time interacting with our systems, like Argent and wallets like this. But it helps prevent against certain types of flash loans. Now we rely on LP tokens from Curve and Uniswap and eventually a variety of others as the deposit asset. So there could be certain things that happen there that could, who knows, right? But on our system, that's one of the many things that we've tried to implement to help prevent against some of that stuff. But to be honest, man, like you never know. Like we just want to go out there, we're going to have a security practice, and we want to have as many audits as humanly possible, because audits aren't anything more than like a bunch of smart people looking over your stuff and like giving a green check mark. That doesn't mean it's completely safe, right? Like all these hacks have had multiple audits, especially the ones recently. So it's not about that. And I highly encourage anybody that participates in this world to not think like, oh, something's audited, like this is like gold standard. Like that's just bullshit, right? Like you want to continuously and have a very hyper, like I think something crazy, like 30% of the operating budget of Yearn was spent on security audits and practices over the last like 4 months, something like that, you know?
Just think about like have you heard about BZX?
Yep, of course.
So I mean these are probably arguably the most audited contracts on Ethereum. And you know, they like a couple of months ago, I still remember you know, they had gotten a brand new set of audits out. They'd fixed up all of these holes and things like that. And, you know, they'd already been hacked. And guess what? You know, after those audits came out, they got hacked again. And it wasn't something anyone was necessarily expecting. I think it was a flash loan exploit. But it's a really scary world out there. I think people are, what are they calling it?
You also
The
got to
dark
look at it
forest.
too, right? Like how do the protocols or the projects respond? Right? Because like in anything in life, you know, mistakes are made. No one's perfect. And the way that these products and protocols respond and teams respond, like I've been impressed with how Harvest has responded, for example, right? They've done everything they've could to mitigate the system and build some new security practices, but they very quickly put a plan together to try and fix the issue and make the people that lost all that money right by releasing their grain token. That's kind of like an IOU token that gets, you know, a percentage of profits or things along those lines distributed back to the people that were hacked. Like that's also as important. And this is going to happen. It's going to happen to great products and great protocols. We got to understand this is an unbelievably early space. And, you know, a lot of these things, they're just brand new. So you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
So everyone needs to be conscious to that.
Well, I'm certainly interested. I mean, you said that you guys are going to go live next week. Do you have any idea of exactly when that'll be? And if you're not 100% sure, you know, I know you said you're waiting on some audits and things like that. You know, where can people find like the latest information on this? You know, how can they stay up to
Honestly,
date?
like our Discord like is super open and active. Like come in there, come say hello, provide some feedback. And, like we're asking all the major questions around what's happening with the product protocol, the token distribution, the launch. Everything's being run by the community there to get their like almost their green, you know, their thumbs up before we move forward. We made quite a few changes because of them, but we're shooting for Monday, but it's going to be a very you're going to know well in advance. This is not going to be a surprise thing.
Right.
It's not like there's a sale or anything like that. There's none of that stuff happening. You know, to the distribution simply going to be around people that use the product. So once the product's live, then that's kind of where it would all start. And we're going to make sure that everyone knows way ahead of time what the plan is. So right now we're just announcing kind of daily tour, anywhere between 1 and 3 different groups that have qualified for the airdrop. So we just announced Curve maybe about an hour ago, and then this morning, all the members of the LAO, they're going to be participating as part of the airdrop, or they're going to be qualified for it. But yeah, BadgerDAO Finance is the website, and BadgerDAO on Twitter, and then of course the Discord. You can go there and come say what's up, and like, you know, the whole team's in there, everyone's in there.
Yeah, sweet. It should be exciting. If you guys hadn't checked them out, you know, I tagged them in the Twitter post. You should go to the Discord and you should follow them on Twitter. They've got some really, really good memes too, you know, which is always important. I don't know who your meme guy is, but he's kicking
Meme
ass.
game's strong. Dan, our meme game's strong.
Yeah,
we have
the
a video
meme-
game. I'll tell you, dude, it's like super nostalgic. Like I think me and you fall in the same age bracket. It's like I grew up playing, like I grew up obsessed with Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, WWF, you know, Duck Hunt, Super Mario. Like that was my shit, man. Zelda, like that's all I did. So like when we started coming up with some of this stuff, man, I'm like, all right, we're gonna do 8-bit, we're gonna do video game style, and we're gonna make this fun too, you know.
You know, I think people kind of underscore the importance of dank memes in any crypto project. So, you know, I mean, if you ever show up at a project and the memes aren't good, then it's probably time to run because you don't have the right class of autism in your.
Dude, I wanted to ask you, like, what's your overall like just vibe right now on the market? Like I asked this question to quite a few friends.
Oh, man.
We were talking about it last week at poker, but like what's your overall vibe?
It's I'm at the phase right now where I'm cautiously optimistic, you know, because I'm a shitcoiner, you know, and I'm exposed to a lot of these shitcoins and DeFi protocols and things like that, and for me personally, like I'm looking at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. I'm looking at what Ethereum, or what Bitcoin has done. And then I look at the Ethereum chart and I'm just like, man, like I don't know when, how long are they going to make me wait? Am I going to sit there and like have this anxiety about this movement for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, for the next 3 weeks, for the next month? I mean, are they going to make me wait till 2021? I'm not quite sure, but I do feel like that some crazy shit's about to happen. And I think it things like this typically tend to happen when people expect it the least. We've got this whole narrative going on right now, of course, of like new retail coming in, and then they're going to buy the shitcoin bags and stuff like that. That's what we've been told. And of course, retail does pump your shitcoins, but I do believe, what you'll see at the beginning of the anticipation of new retail coming in is you'll see whales start to enter these markets and they'll start to mark up these coins ahead of time. It's their accumulation, and they're also reversing the trends and making the charts look right, and et cetera, et cetera. I think that happened last week. We saw a lot of these super fucked DeFi coins and protocols that had just been dumping and dumping and dumping. Show strong reversals, and put in really big volume and really nice weekly prints. But I think Ethereum is going to really wow people this go, and I think Bitcoin is already wowing people. I certainly didn't expect to be looking at, it's close to an all-time high tap in November. I've got my own theories that, the Biden presidency is kind of accelerating this process, especially if, we're going to raise capital gains taxes and things like that. Maybe this whole process has been accelerated to where profit taking at absurd Bitcoin prices can happen in 2020 rather than in 2021. But who fucking knows? Because in 2017, at the beginning of it, like, I could have never imagined, what was coming to the markets. And I think that, we got a little taste of what DeFi can do, 2 months ago. It was a bubble. It was a short-lived bubble. But DeFi, just in that short period of time, I think locked up like maybe 10% of the Ethereum in circulation, which was similar to ICO mania, which is just absurd that happened in such a short period of time. Introduced new concepts like liquidity mining, made crypto accessible for everyone, regardless of where you are. US, no problem now. Go to Uniswap, and nobody can really do anything about it. Whereas in the past is, hey, I'm US, like, well, fuck, I got to go to Binance. Oh, I'm not allowed there anymore, So it's an interesting situation to where I really feel like all of the stars are kind of aligned for this just absolutely massive crypto boom. And I do think that the DeFi sector is going to capture a large portion of that. Of course, Litecoin will go 3x, 4x, 5x. People hate Ripple, but Ripple will pump 5x. These are the coins that, normies go to Coinbase, and one Bitcoin's $20,000, but I can buy 1 million Ripple. And if one Ripple just gets to $20,000, then I'll have $20 billion or some shit like that. We know the thought processes of these people. But I'm excited. I'm nervous too. I'm nervous.
I'm nervous too, dude. Like, and the reason why I'll tell you I'm nervous. So, like, do I think Bitcoin is going to 100,000? Of course I do. Do I think it's going there in the next 6 months? Probably not. Right? Do I think it's going there in the next 2 years? Maybe, actually. It was funny. I was talking to Bobby Lee about this last week, and Bobby said, and I actually really believe this. He goes, 2016, right after the election, is very similar to what's going on right now. Bitcoin started to get back up into this range of like 900, 1,000, and everyone was so pumped because it's been like a few years since it touched in that area. And then it kind of stayed there for a while, right? Like months and months. Like Q1, people were thinking it was going to pop, didn't pop. Q2, things started to roll. And then it was really like Q3, it exploded. And what Bobby was saying was, the bull season, or like the top is really not there until we see like 100% wick in one day. Like he goes, like, I don't know who, I think we were playing poker, like Ari Paul may have asked this, or I can't remember who asked it, but it was like, you know, when is China coming in? Right? Like a lot of people are saying China's not in. And we just laughed because like Bobby had the biggest exchange in China and had a massive mind. So we're like, Bobby, you're the de facto guy. But nonetheless, Bobby, you know, saying China's in when you see 100% wick. Like that's when you know shit and he goes, that's, you know, what he thinks. He thinks it's like 30 or 40K and it's like, boom, 80K. And that's something
just like that.
Like that, boom, like just rip your face off.
Just because of like a lack of sell side liquidity and huge FOMO, and then all of a sudden it's
just explosion, right?
Yeah.
You know, but a big shift for me this year in particular was like how I've always looked at like Bitcoin, ETH, stables, and then everything else. Now I look at it like Bitcoin, ETH, stables, DeFi, and everything else. Like it's really gotten to that level. And I believe what we saw, like you said, was just a taste. And
it's a test pump.
It's like next year, it's going to be nuts. It's not even about like the price of the tokens and all that type of shit. Like even if any and all of the more popular DeFi tokens went up and Ethereum went up 2 or 3x, we're already at 40 billion in DeFi. Like right now, like just the tokens going up, right? So like assume there's another 40, 50, 75% that comes in. Like we're talking 30, 40, 50, $100 billion. That's like a quarter of the entire market right now. You know?
If you look at the last narrative, and you know, it's kind of like early 2017, even late 2016. You know, of course we had all these ICOs and stuff like that, but just about anything that you bought then that was worth a shit, you know, that was below a $10 million market cap went to a, you know, $100, $200 million market cap. And there were even outliers, you know, within those that went to $1 billion cap. And, you know, I keep thinking to myself, and, you know, I'm looking at some of these DeFi protocols in their infancies, and, you know, their $5, $10 million caps. And I just keep wondering, you know, are we going to see some of these $10 million cap coins, I mean, really make it to the big time? You know, if Bitcoin goes to 50K in the next couple of months, or 30K, and you know, Ethereum pops back up to $1,000, and I mean, we have all this hype and you know, out retail FOMOing in and all this shit. Like, are we going to see another situation to where, you know, all of a sudden you just got unicorns popping up left and right? You know,
I do think so, Dan. I think, you know, Wi-Fi is a really good example. I've said their name so many times, and I feel
got to give respect where it's due.
You know, you got to give respect where it's due. But, you know, they have a product that people use, a specific audience, like these DeFi degens that we all are. Like, they're the best product, the most secure product, and the product that we all kind of choose first. Great. The way they launched in a way that was genuinely fair, and there's not all this bullshit with like investors and VCs and all this type of crap that's associated with it. They built this amazing community, and this community is now making the right decisions after a wonky start, but like really amazing decisions for the betterment of the protocol, the project, and all of its products. Like that went from like nothing to $500 million in 3 months, right? In value, crazy. And hundreds of millions of dollars a day in volume, which is crazy. Like the way that we saw, and this is not talked about as much, but the way that we saw new tokens getting mass distribution across centralized exchanges, product integrations, all these other ways for people to touch the token, that didn't exist before. And it came and went almost like that. But that's just the beginning, because it was the users and the activity and the volume that came with it, and the overarching demand and the accessibility with things like Uniswap, that forced the hands of all the kind of traditional exchanges and shit like that. That was exactly what's going to happen. That's going to happen times 10, right? So we're going to see, I guarantee, at least the way I'm putting bets, there's going to be more and more special projects like the Wi-Fi's that are going to be coming out of this time, just like there was before. Let's not forget Synthetics and Aave and Compound. They all, and Uniswap, they all started back in 2017. Aave and Synthetics did ICOs, right? ETHLend did an ICO. And what did they do? What did Synthetics do? They managed their treasury so well when they converted to a DAO, they had $150 million in it a few months ago, right? Like, what does that tell you? That's a team that was ahead of the time in building their product, that took advantage of a unique funding opportunity, and then was smart with that money to put them in a position to be a market leader a few years later. There's going to be plenty of those, right? And you just got to really focus on those fundamentals. And I like, and maybe we're wrong, right, Dan? But like, I believe those are going to be DeFi products and protocols. I believe so.
I think so too. And last time, we saw an alt season, and I think, some people were in for a rude awakening because the last alt season wasn't an alt season at all. It was DeFi season. It wasn't altcoins. It was DeFi. Just that sector. And anybody that, had put their chips anywhere else got totally left out. I'm curious if we see, for the most part, that happening again, because in 2017 there was a lot of innovation happening outside of the Ethereum ecosystem. You had a project or projects like Decred, like Sia Coin, like Dash at the time, that were layer one solutions that were kind of trying to be a replacement for something else that already existed. Now I think in 2020 most people can agree that Bitcoin has the most Lindy out of anything. Bitcoin's definitely here to stay, has the most infrastructure built for it, in the traditional world at least. Has the most liquidity, et cetera, et cetera. Ethereum's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's kind of the hub for all the dApps, but you kept mentioning an interoperable future earlier. And that BadgerDAO is like it's not just about Bitcoin on Ethereum. It's about Bitcoin on anything. And you're starting with Ethereum. It will be interesting to see how this DeFi narrative permeates across Cosmos, across Algorand, across Polkadot. I mean, there's so many different places.
It's like it's the proof's in the pudding, right, Dan? It's like, how can something garner, like, it's a mainstay, like DeFi, the word DeFi now is like a mainstay in our space, like this, like within 8 or 9 months, everyone that's a crypto head knows about DeFi. It's like, what do you think all these, like, look at a lot of the projects, like you look at projects, I actually have quite a bit of respect for some of the technology and infrastructure that Mainframe has built, but you look at a lot of like ICO projects that were trying to find their market fit, almost all of them are now talking about some type of decentralized finance application and use case for their blockchain. Solana is another great example, right? Solana came out during the ICO boom last time, and they're focused now, and rightfully so, because the infrastructure, the speed, and all the type of stuff that makes them what they are, that is very beneficial towards decentralized applications, and that's the current bottleneck on Ethereum. But what was the narrative in 2017? Oh, Ethereum can't scale. Oh, this and all that. That's why, like, the Ethereum of China and the Ethereum of this, and like that was like, that's why Icon 100x and Tron exploded and like all this shit.
Tron, but Icon, like, Qtum,
all of them,
Neo.
Yeah, but even like, EOS and like even those ones too, right? Like all that shit. And it was all around like that kind of narrative. I think the same thing happens with DeFi at the forefront here. And one of the things that I was going to say a few minutes ago that I forgot is when you talk about like, when's ETH going to pop, when's ETH going to pop, when's ETH going to pop, that reminds me of this exact time 3 years ago. Right? Like Bitcoin was fucking ripping it, boom, boom, ripping it. And Ethereum was like 300, 400, 500. And then Bitcoin slowed down. I think it was like the second week of December, and ETH just ripped through 1,000 like it was no one's business.
ETH went fucking crazy.
It just went nuts. And then it just kept going. And then the alts just flew with it for that month. And so many times people tend to forget that Bitcoin is the king, and everyone exits positions back into Bitcoin when they have some confidence that Bitcoin's going to keep ripping. And when that happens, obviously the other tokens and whatever they are, they start either going down or leveling off. But then when Bitcoin slows down, ETH rips, major alts rip, and then this is previous, alts ripped. Now I can actually see it being Bitcoin slows down, ETH rips, more established DeFi rips, and then some of the mainstay
it trickles down.
Right, just trickles down, starting with like top 20, whatever, they go up a bit, and then you'll have all these outliers underneath all that, right, with different narratives or whatever. So we tend to forget that, but I even with all that being said, do I feel confident like in the next month it's time to like grab out of the USDC stash and start placing some bets? I'm still hesitant, dude. I'll tell you,
it's scary.
It's scary stuff, man. Like in the matter of, I was just even looking at a couple of charts this morning, like the way DeFi ripped in the last few weeks, like tripled in some instances. It went down that same speed like a month and a bit ago, you know? So it's like
DeFi is so fucking volatile, man. Like it's up, it's elevator up and elevator down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we have been here for about an hour. We didn't say we were going to go on for too much longer than that. I am interested in hearing you give a prediction on, where do you think the Bitcoin top for this go is? Because, you mentioned earlier, do you think Bitcoin's going to go to 100K, in this year, or even in 2021? Maybe not, but, in 2 years, you think that that's probably more of a certainty. It is interesting, especially when people make comparisons to previous cycles, and Bitcoin is typically, it has its cycle and then it's kind of done. But even then, you look at people have also made comparisons to Amazon and things like that emerged, post .com bubble, and there are a lot of similarities, with the charts there, and it could be, like. It's easy for us to have like this implicit bias, when we're looking back and we say that the bubbles happened this way before. So everybody gets it in their head that, okay, Bitcoin's going to do this, and then the money's going to rotate here, and then Bitcoin's going to do this, and then it's going to do this, or it went up this percent last time, so it's also going to go up this percent this time. Where do you see Bitcoin topping out this cycle, and what do you think like the characteristics of this bull run are going to be? In other words, do you think it's going to be like fuck you, relentless, like in your face? Because people keep talking about, well, you expect a 30 or 40% pullback every time. Like, do you think that that's still in play, given the significantly larger amount of liquidity in the Bitcoin system, CME, CBOE? I mean, you've got all of this like extra fucking liquidity that's there. BitMEX isn't there anymore, which, a lot of people have been joking, ever since Arthur went into hiding and the liquidity left BitMEX, Bitcoin started playing ball. It hadn't started doing fuckboy shit. We don't have Darth Mauls and Barts and all this bullshit anymore. So I know that's a long-winded question, but what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, to answer that question, okay, you talk about memes. I've been saving this for the right question here. Okay? Here it is. And I didn't give you a glimpse just to show you the dichotomy there, okay? So it's a little bit of both.
Let's go.
But okay, so I genuinely think, I don't know what the time frame is, and I'm not like a big time Bitcoin trader. I'm more of like a buy and hold for a long time, which has kind of been my play. But I genuinely think whatever this next cycle looks like, I think 100K is that benchmark. And the reason why I say that is because once it blows through like 20, 30, like why 50K and not 100K, right? Like if it's garnered enough momentum and there's enough interest and there's enough new entrants and there's just enough activity around Bitcoin to push it even anywhere near 50, which would also include institutional investors, and most likely, like, seeing some form or fashion of publicly traded stuff. Like when that happens, like ripping through 100K, ripping to 100K shouldn't be that difficult on paper. Now, there's so many things that can happen. With that being said, if the stock market took a massive dip in Q1, I don't think Bitcoin's uncorrelated enough where it's not going to take a massive dip with it, right? So like there's a lot of factors that need to happen. Bitcoin is still such an early asset. Let's not even talk about everything else. but I do think Bitcoin sets the bar. And if Bitcoin really takes off, I think that's just going to have that trickle effect on Ethereum. We start seeing people come in, the newbies, the same way they looked at it and said, hey, I want to buy Ripple because Bitcoin's ripping or whatever. Like, it's going to happen, but just in a different, different conversation, right? That maybe look like, oh, that coin in the summer went up like from 0 to 50,000 or whatever. Like, maybe I should buy some of that. It's only 5,000 now, or whatever the number is, right? But I genuinely think the next cycle looks like $100,000 Bitcoin. And I still think that's very early. Like, I think Bitcoin's going to be $1 million one day. I don't know when, but I genuinely think Bitcoin's going to be $1 million one day. Now, am I going to go on here and say I'm going to eat my dick if it doesn't? No fucking way, right? You know what I mean? I'd never do something stupid like that. But that's where I think it's going. And outside of just having genuine belief in it as, the new financial system, like which I genuinely believe in. I do think that activity, I think it's a perfect storm for Bitcoin with what's happening in the global economy today and the money printer go burr, and people, like, you're starting to talk to people and they're starting to use economic terms that they didn't even think about before, like inflation and stuff. Like, people didn't even use those words. Now it's kind of on everyone's tongue because news is just pumping it in there. And that's the exact narrative that makes Bitcoin Bitcoin. Right? Because it is a fixed supply asset. There is scarcity built into the underlying protocol. You can't turn on a printer and print more. So I think that narrative is really going to push it. And I do think for us to start reaching that, we need retail to garner interest again. Like, I think you've probably seen some of the charts in the last few days. I think even CNBC showed it. Like, the search traffic on Bitcoin or just overall conversations about Bitcoin, news articles about Bitcoin in 2017 was here when the price was here. In 2020, it's here, but the price is here, right? So it's like people are really not even talking about it. It's just like our little circle jerk of crypto people that are really pushing this forward, which makes me believe that there's still a lot more room, Yeah,
I think so too. And, I really, really wish Bitcoin would just have that wick up to all-time highs just to kick off that news cycle. Because when that ball gets rolling, like it's unstoppable. And I just keep thinking, this time, like, think about Robinhood. Robinhood has crypto there. I mean, it's people say
forget Robin. What about PayPal?
Robinhood. There's so many like on-ramps now for normies to come in. I mean, easier on-ramps than Coinbase or Gemini. I can go to PayPal. I can, I've already got a Robinhood account because, I'm trading stonks this year because that's what everybody's doing.
Let's not forget that's a big trend. We didn't talk about that, and people almost forget that. That was a good narrative around like July when Portney was blowing up. Everyone's like, all these people are going to start, and people started putting like, Robinhood indexes together where you can just trade the Robinhood coins or whatever. Like, that's a real thing. Like, people that never invested in their life got comfortable listening to people on social and putting their money to work and seeing gains. When they start getting a taste for crypto, which is going to happen with that accessibility there, and they start seeing real gains, like fucking rip your face off gains, it's going to get ballistic, man.
Oh, it's going to be crazy. And think about all the FOMO this go around, with the Zoomers, it's on TikTok. And I mean, these guys are already like trying to pump Dogecoin and like all sorts of a bunch of shit like that. I do want to actually talk about one more thing before we end this. And I've also heard, people have said, well, DeFi is not a good narrative for retail, and it's not a good mainstream narrative, because it's too confusing. It's hard for people to figure out how to get in, how to buy these coins. Now my argument against that was that in 2017, people came in and found out how to participate in these ICO pre-sales. Which they really had to get in the basement of crypto to do that, and join Telegram groups and, connect with shady people, et cetera, et cetera. They also figured out how to use Binance, how to use an order book exchange, which in my opinion is much more difficult to understand than something like Uniswap. do you think that retail can come in and see something like Uniswap and just go, hey, I'm going to watch a couple of YouTube videos, or I'll join this group and I'll figure out how to use it very quickly? I mean, for me, of course, I've been here as long as you have, for 8 years. It was natural. I went to Uniswap. It was intuitive. I was like, oh, I click this button to buy and I click this button to sell. And if I want to put in a new coin, then I just copy and paste the contract address. Do you think that these like new retail participants are going to be able to come in and make that transition and buy our bags?
Yeah, I genuinely think that retail is going to use DeFi because it is much easier to use than what we saw, many years back and what we've seen on the road from then to now. Like you using a web extension and going to a website and it automatically knowing your balances, and then you literally just clicking a button to potentially lend and borrow whatever with that. That's really cool stuff. Now, people are going to get wrecked to shreds. Of course they're going to be. Now, does retail look like what we've seen this summer, where very knowledgeable people are using DeFi applications for the purpose of getting another token that they think is going to go, like this whole yield farming thing? I don't necessarily think that's going to stick as much with retail, at least in this go around. I think it's going to be more people are going to use some of the apps, and that's already a huge jump, because ICOs, you had to like read white papers, and like this is like, it's an actual app that works. It has like $1 billion in it. Like that clicks for people immediately, right? But I do think that this go around is going to be less around them using the apps, and it's going to be more just about them buying the coins. Like calling a spade, they go on a website, they're like, oh shit, this thing works. Look what this coin did. It's accessible on these apps that I'm already using. I'm just going to buy it and ride it. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more retail that buy DeFi because of just the narrative, and how if they talk to anybody that's been in the space, they're going to talk to them about Bitcoin and Ethereum and probably DeFi, right? But so that's kind of how I see it. But I also think it's not that hard to wrap your head around the narrative and idea that like financial applications will be decentralized. And I think people that are comfortable with like the web and internet and applications, that narrative in itself will kind of click. They'll be like, fuck yeah, like I don't need to go to my bank and like pay $50 to send a wire and do this, and like have to give my mother's left leg to get a loan from the bank. I get this. Using it, that's a different story.
Right.
But getting it, I think they're going to get it. And I think that's just going to lend them to be more interested in buying, trying to make some money, and then eventually, playing around with it. So that's how I see it happening.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. But Chris, thank you for coming on, brother.
Dude,
certainly interesting. Yeah, it was fun. It was really natural. I'd love to have you on again in the future, and not even to talk about BadgerDAO, just to have a crypto vet maybe come in and tell some war stories and stuff like that. 8 years in crypto, like we've seen some shit. It changes you. People don't understand. It changes you for the better and for the worst. But guys, thank you for being here. We are going to be posting this on our YouTube in about a week. We'll have it cleaned up a little bit, so we'll have Chris's little interruption.
The part where my wife walks in, we'll cut that.
We'll make sure to get that part cut off, and make sure all these transitions smooth and all those things like that. But yeah, guys, thanks for being here. Remember, we're going to have a stream this Sunday and probably another one on Friday where we cover DeFi, charts, etc., etc. So until next time, we'll see y'all later.
Thanks for having me, dude.
And we are done. Stop.